All right. Good morning, hobby friends. Welcome to Hobby Hotline. This is episode 344 of Hobby Hotline. I'm your host, Logan Ward, and with me today is a collector's dream, Orlando. He's right over here. How you doing, Orlando?
Doing great, Logan. It's good to be back on Hobby Hotline.
Yeah, I'm glad to see you, buddy. And beaming up today is hobby pioneer and hobby goat, in my opinion, Dr. Jim Beckett. How you doing, Dr. Jim?
Glad to be here. Glad to see you, Logan, and Orlando especially.
Yep, me
Nothing
too.
against you, Logan, but Orlando is it's welcome back.
Thank you, Dr. Jim. It's great to be back. And I'm feeling much, much better, guys. So anybody in the chat that is there, thank you so much. Your prayers and support truly has helped me recover from this thing. Still got a little bit more to go and a little bit more treatment after this. But overall, I'm good, feeling good, and ready to get back in the hobby.
Is the chat going to be nice to you, Orlando? They usually are.
They've been nice so far, unless I say something they don't like.
Well, let's look at the chat real quick. Mad City Brew says, "Good morning, everyone," and they're also glad to see you, Orlando. Steven says, "Hey, hey." Abel says, "Good morning, hi, Orlando." Everybody saying hi to Orlando. Vintage car collector, Orlando. Orlando. Let's see, Stokes. Good morning, all-star guest. Thank you very much. Larry says, "Good morning. You look good, Orlando." I agree with that. That's really great. Philly Joe. Good morning, gang. Looking good, Orlando. Glad to see you. Mark Hoyle. Hey, Mark. Hey, Orlando. Glad to see you. Hello to Logan, Dr. Beckett as well. And here's our buddy Mookie. Welcome back, Orlando. I will take it easy on you today. No, don't do that, Mookie. Don't do that. All right. So before we get started, I want to show something really funny here for a second. I had AI draw a picture of the Hobby Hotline hosts, Orlando, Dr. Jim, and myself holding microphones with a pile of trading cards. And this is what it came up with. And let me show you guys. So there's Dr. Jim. I guess he's in the lab coat. And Orlando, apparently you and I are twins.
Yeah, you're looking good, Logan.
And I don't know why we've got Teletubbies in the background. So thought that was kind of crazy. But anyway, just wanted to show that real quick. I guess we can get started with the big elephant in the room. This week, it was announced that Pete Rose and Shoeless Joe, among others, are being reinstated into Major League Baseball. Orlando, what are your thoughts on that when you heard the news?
Personally, I thought it was great news. They're two different situations, in my opinion. Shoeless Joe, essentially, he wasn't really involved in the gambling. It was more, the other guys, Eddie Seacon, some of the guys. Shoeless Joe really, he wasn't educated, couldn't read or write. And, if you look back in the series, I think he batted over 340 in the series. So, but it was a different time back then when gambling was really a complete no-no, totally different than it's been, in the last 40, 50 years. So Shoeless Joe, in my opinion, probably should have been there years ago. If I remember correctly, I think the case of the White Sox was found not guilty overall. Even though they did end up losing the series. But I think that Shoeless Joe, if you look back at what he did during that series, there's no way he could have thrown the series. So, but he was lumped into the whole group of the Black Sox scandal. Pete Rose is a different situation. He did gamble, but his gambling was more as a manager. So I think, if you look back at his playing days, what he did in the game, I mean, I don't feel you can leave out of the Hall of Fame the leading hitter, all-time hitter of hits, ever. And it was just, Pete Rose I think, was just different. Maybe he should have been banned for a while, but I think if you look at today, how gambling is today, it's just more, I guess, acceptable than it was even 30, 40 years ago. If you look at the way that I mean, everything is gambling now. From opening packs to if you go to card shows, you see the young kids even flipping coins for deals. That's gambling. So,
Right.
but I think since it is more acceptable, I think the overall I guess the country or the people are accepting gambling as being a little bit okay. But I look at Pete Rose's playing days, his stats, the way he played, the way he was as a player, and as a player, definitely should be in the Hall of Fame. But I do understand why he was left out, and I understand why some people, are against him being in there.
Dr. Beckett, what are your thoughts when you heard the news?
First of all, Orlando, I think you did that in one breath. You are back.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, I did a podcast yesterday about Pete Rose and gambling and had a number of points that I made, and I don't want to rehash everything there other than gambling. The ship has sailed. Gambling is here to stay in the world of sports. And so the old rules of no gambling, no betting, all that stuff, it's difficult now because all these gambling apps and entities are sponsors of the various sports. But what needs to be punished rather than just gambling, although gambling by players on games and baseball games or managers or anybody associated with the game, it's the rigged gambling. It's the throwing games. Now, I've never heard anybody accuse Pete Rose of even doing less than his best. He was over the speed limit. He gave it all he had. And if he would have pulled back just a little bit, I think that would have been noticed. So he gets a walk and he just kind of saunters down to first base. I don't think that happened even when he was 40 years old. So he was a hustler. He gave it all he got, and I respect that. But he did bet on the game. There's many who think he did bet not just when he was a manager and not just on the Reds, but as a player. And he was a player manager for a little while too. So, but that's all been washed away in the agreement that he made to be permanently ineligible. So it wasn't a lifetime ban. He was on the permanently ineligible list. And so I was thinking, well, it's a lifetime ban. He died. So he was banned he was permanently ineligible. And that's why the language is that Shoeless Joe and these other guys, many of whom are not very worthy at all because they really did throw games. Now, my nephew is at West Point, and they have an honor code there. And it's not just about lying and cheating or stealing, those kind of things. It's about not reporting those who do. So you can be kicked out of these academies if you knowingly look the other way when somebody's doing the wrong thing. And so that's the honor code that was, the Black Sox, a lot of people knew, and potentially Shoeless Joe knew. Now, maybe he was confused and not that well educated, but it's wrong to throw games. That's everybody can agree that's wrong. To bet on games, that the society now is saying that that's benign, that we bet all the time, as Orlando said. So, at any rate, like I said, I don't have a vote, but I think Pete's going to get in the Hall of Fame, and I think, and that's deserved in terms of his on the field exploits. Just unbelievable. One of great players that I got to watch when I was going to a lot of games back when I was younger.
Yeah, I know that growing up as a kid in Louisville, Kentucky, I was a big Cincinnati Reds, big Red Machine fan back in the 70s. Of course, Pete Rose and Johnny Bench were my guys. And we went to Riverfront Stadium, several times as a kid. And I remember one time specifically, we were sitting out in the left field bleachers. We were right on the front row, and we kept yelling at Pete Rose the whole time. Hey, Pete, hey, Pete. And finally he turned around and he looked at us and he just kind of did like that. And we about lost it. It was so cool to have him do that. But I'm glad to see him be reinstated. I agree that he will be in the Hall of Fame. He deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. I never saw any kind of player exude more. What's the word I'm looking for? He was always hustling, and he always, even going to first base, he would run to first base, and I always admired that. And I kind of modeled kind of the person I am, kind of after some of the things that Pete Rose did. So I'm glad to see it, and I agree with you guys also as far as the gambling aspect these days. It's kind of considered the norm, and you're right, it's not going to go away. I mean, it's in our hobby, from our hobby itself to the sports that we follow. So,
Logan, I agree, except if Pete Rose did throw a game or give less than his best, which I think is against everything he stood for and everything we ever saw. So I bet he was betting on himself and betting on his team. That's still not right, but it's way different than throwing a game. If he was throwing games, he does not deserve to be in the Hall of Fame, no matter how many hits he got. But I don't think he did. And I don't think so. Most people think he did either.
Let's check a few of the comments in the chat. Abel says Pete Rose, the player, absolutely belongs in the Hall of Fame. Totally agree with that. Stooks says gambling sponsors many sporting events now. I have to watch his Timberwolves. He has to watch his Timberwolves on the regular season on FanDuel. So wow, FanDuel has an app where you can watch. Okay, I did not know that.
And you probably can place bets along the way. I mean, they're updating the odds and all these prop bets and parlays and things like that. It's real time now.
Oh yeah, I can only imagine. I don't do anything like that, but I can only imagine when a particular player's up for bat or something like that, they're asking, is he going to get a hit here on this pitch? Yes or no? Bet whatever. It's crazy now. It's just not my thing though. Let's see.
Logan, the other thing I said is the more complicated the bet, typically the more advantage the house has.
Oh, no doubt about that. The house always is going to win eventually. Let's see. Warren says, good morning, hobby friends. Mookie says, I work backwards from the paragraph on the plaque on the wall. If they get in, the plaque needs to reflect the accepted truth of the totality of their playing/managing days. I agree with that.
Well, the plaque it turns out the plaque used to be a plaque, and now it's a 2-page legal thing, I think now, and you got to read the fine print. I mean, it says don't bet, especially on baseball, especially, so, but it's in English and Spanish.
Yeah, that's yeah. All right, so let's see. Gym City Card Show. It's not the Hall of Good Guys, so I don't see why he would be put in. If it was about being a good human, well, we would be removing many. Well, I don't know. I still think he's going to get in, and I think he should be in. Pete Rose definitely, and I think Shoeless Joe as well.
All the discussion about making the hall smaller, and like I joke about relegating, like they do in soccer, that we'd pull out. It's never about the bad guys. It's about the not so great players. It's Harold Baines, who is a great guy, but not a superstar. But it's not about let's get rid of the bad apples. It's let's get rid of the guys that were that were not the top rank of players.
Yeah, it's about what they did on the field. It's about their, their stats, and some people are not comfortable with players that played for such a long time and extended their stats for so many years, you know. But and I do agree with that. I don't like to see these borderline Hall of Famers, but sometimes the committee, they may not have a lot to vote, a lot of top-notch guys to vote for. So they kind of maybe, okay, well, we got to get somebody in this year, so let's just get a Harold Baines in. And yeah, overall his stats are great, but I think if you look at, was he during his playing days at the time, how did he compare to the other people he was playing against at his prime? And Harold Baines was never one of the top players in the league. I mean, overall his stats are great, but he just, I don't remember him as a Hall of Famer while he was playing the game, you know. And when you look at Pete Rose, I never saw Ty Cobb play, but everything I've read up on Ty Cobb, Pete Rose reminds me of Ty Cobb. That aggressiveness, that will to win, that the love of baseball, and those are the things I think that take Hall of Famers just over the top, above and beyond just your average or even above average players. So I kind of relate, Ty Cobb and Pete Rose, kind of a similar style of play, in my opinion.
I totally agree, because basically, if you look at the biographies of Ty Cobb, not all of which are unbiased, he has some detractors as well. The other thing is Pete Rose, and Logan would know this from sitting out in left field and watching Big Red Machine games. Pete Rose actually had a lot of power, but and Ty Cobb did too, but they chose to hit for average and to hit singles and doubles and not long fly outs. But they both had a lot of power. They weren't weak. They weren't Babe Ruth. But Pete Rose understood how to win, and that was not just getting hits, but getting on base and contributing on defense at whatever position he was. So again, everything's and Ty Cobb, nobody ever accused Ty Cobb of not deeply, deeply wanting to win at any cost.
He just wasn't liked by a lot of the players, and Pete Rose was the same. There's a lot of players that just didn't like Pete Rose, just the way he was, the way he played.
Yeah,
but
Ray Fosse.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say that.
Boy, that was a huge hit there.
All right, here's some more comments.
Illegal, but I think legal at the time. And then they changed.
I agree, Dr. Jim. I think they did change the rule, probably because of hits like that.
All right, so Dr. Jim, if you had a Hall of Fame vote, would you vote for Rose and Jackson for the Hall of Fame?
Hypothetical question. If they want to put me on the committee, actually, I'm not going to dodge it. I probably would. But it's going to be subject to the committee, which is 12 or 15 electors. Several of whom are former players that played with or against Pete, or are very aware of him personally. So I think he's going to get in, and I think if somebody doesn't vote for him, if he doesn't get in, it's not that there'll be death threats on the committee, but they'll be freaked out. I mean, it's the world will be freaked out if he doesn't get in now that he's passed. But it's going to be in a couple of years, guys. It's not imminent. The next time, and he's not going to be on the same ballot with Shoeless Joe. Shoeless Joe will be in the dead ball group or whatever it is. So every they have a 4-year rotation. But yeah, I would vote for him based on what they did on the field, especially Joe Jackson, probably especially Pete Rose too. He's, it was about punishment fitting the crime. The guy has passed, and now we have his stats live on. There's no asterisk on his stats. He's a legend.
Yeah, he's a legend. And even though Pete said, he didn't want to be put in after he passed away, I think he definitely will be voted in. And like Dr. Jim said, it's going to be a while. That committee doesn't meet until 2027. I think December 2027. So either one of them, I don't think they're going to be. They'll be voted in, but it's not going to be till 2028 if they're inducted into the Hall of Fame. So we're still years away. And I agree again with Dr. Jim. There's going to be pressure put on these voters to get Rose in and to get Jackson in. So, you got another 2-3 years that they're going to be hearing a lot from a lot of people. And the pressure, I think, is going to force them or make sure that they go in.
So this was just raised in the chat. Does this, to me, I think the next agenda for a lot of people is Bonds and Clemens and McGuire.
Yeah, that's true. Philly Joe says the Baseball Hall of Fame is a joke when two of the greatest players are not in based on alleged PED use. So, that's a whole nother conversation right there. But yeah, I kind of agree with that. I think they need to be in as well if they're going to allow Pete Rose and Shoeless Joe in eventually. So
maybe eventually, Logan, but I think it's just such a different situation, because they cheated. I mean, they definitely cheated. They enhanced, their ability using the PEDs. So their stats, are tough to look at. I mean, McGuire, would he have hit, over 70 home runs if he didn't use PEDs? Those are the questions that are going to come up with that. And I think that's going to take some more years, I think, for something like that to happen, if it does happen.
Well, Orlando, you just said, I mean, if it's December of 27, which I think is right, it's in like 2.5 years, that if Pete gets in December of 27, then the conversation will begin. Obviously, if they take a hard line and don't let Pete in, well, then that's going to be the ethos of the day. They're not going to let Bonds in either. But if Pete gets in, it's going to show a more relaxed. Now, the biggest criticism I got in my episode yesterday about Pete Rose was when I mentioned our president, Donald Trump. And if I even mention the name, some people just, why are you mentioning him? I said, I was mentioning him in the context of society giving second chances. Here's a guy who's been indicted. He's been bankrupt. He's been president. He's been impeached. And then he's been out. And then still, when he was elected last November, he got more than half of the popular vote. And so people are forgiving nowadays. And so that's something that wouldn't have happened 50 years ago, I don't think. You're out. But now people are saying, yeah, he paid his time, he did it, paid his dues, all that stuff. And so Bonds, I think, is going to get in. Bonds, like we say, Bonds was a Hall of Famer before his head got big.
Right. And that, I think that's the main thing that Dr. Jim said, that people are forgiving, and time kind of heals all wounds, sometimes. And times change too. People's opinions change overall. But I do agree that that Bonds would have been a Hall of Famer even without using the PEDs.
He was better than his worst year is better than Harold Baines' best year.
Exactly.
Oh, goodness.
All right. We've got a lot of comments in the chat. We probably need to try to catch up on. Octavio says, welcome, Orlando. God bless. We've talked about this comment. Cooter Levs, he says, Rose knew the rule. He knew the penalty. He admittedly chased minor girls. I'd never heard that before. He should never be admitted. It's called accountability. Foul Ball says they were both great players, but they were not worthy of the Hall of Fame due to breaking the golden rule. No ifs, ands, or buts. Octavio says Dr. Beckett is a legend. I agree with that. Foul Ball, both cheaters. Jim City says, no, I agree. He will be put in. I think so too. Rex says, good morning. We're on the big screen. Hey, everybody on the big screen. It's good to see you guys.
Yes.
Donald says he agrees with Jim City. Hodges, he gave a video like. So, hey, everybody like this today. Vintage Oddball Cards. It's a museum. You can't write the story of baseball without Rose, Jackson, and Bonds. Plenty of players in the Hall of Fame have shady pasts. You know, everybody's got something. Stukes, Rose will be up in 2027. Rex says, I have enough room in my head to appreciate that Rose is a Hall of Famer who has had some serious character flaws. You know, nobody's perfect, you know, for sure. All American says, God bless you, Orlando. You look great. Chris C, glad to see you guys are doing well, Orlando. Foul ball. Ruth used PEDs. I don't think so.
No, wait a minute. They're called hot dogs.
Yeah, hot dogs and beer.
Hot dogs and beer.
See, Stu says, just think how great Bonds would be considered had he not fell into the temptation of PEDs. Yeah, I hated that when that happened. Let's see, vintage car collector put Bonds in, but strip him of his all-time home run record. What do you guys think about that?
I think Bonds would be okay with that. I mean, it's like putting an asterisk on Roger Maris for all those years. I mean, everybody knew. That was political. But he's not in the Hall of Fame. They put him in, and then they put some asterisks there. He's in.
Yeah, I agree. But his all-time record may not have happened if it wasn't for the PED. So I do think that you need to kind of make a note of that somehow, some way in the Hall of Fame. That it added home runs to his career for sure. And how many? Who knows? 10%, 20% more? Who knows? Maybe 30% more home runs. Because definitely he blew up. I mean, if you look at his when he started, you know, he was a skinny guy when he first started. Look at his cards, and then look at the end. You know how he totally just buffed up. His head was huge. I mean, it was a totally different guy from the beginning of his career to the end of the career. And people like, let's say, Canseco, who obviously used PEDs throughout, you know, he hit almost 500 home runs. Probably would have never even come close to that if it wasn't for the PEDs. I don't think he was as gifted as somebody like a Bonds.
So looking at some more of the comments, let me scroll back up here. Rex says he has enough room in his head to appreciate that Rose is a Hall of Famer who also had some serious character flaws. Let's see, I think we've said some of these.
Yeah, you covered that.
We just keep doing that one. We're so happy to see you, Orlando.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, talking about Pete Rose and Shoeless Joe, does this do anything for their trading cards? Do they increase in value? Do they go down? I mean, what do you guys think about that? Orlando, what are your thoughts?
Well, I think short term, even now, I saw a little spike in some of Pete Rose's cards already. And I do think that probably once he does officially get elected, or if he gets elected, I do think there'll be a little bit of a spike there. But, growing up, collecting cards for so long, Pete Rose's cards were always expensive. There were always some of the cards that people wanted, so I think his prices kind of stabilized over the years, and I think this may give him a boost. But I think, like always, it'll shoot up with the news, and then it'll probably just come and stabilize again, and maybe shoot up again in 2028 a little bit, spike, when maybe some of the newer collectors come in and realize and see all that, what's happened. Joe Jackson, without being a Hall of Famer, his prices are way up there, with the Ty Cobbs and the Babe Ruths already as they are. Mm-hmm. So I don't think Jackson's are going to go up as as much if they even go up, because I think they're pretty much kind of topped out. But yeah, Pete Rose will get a little bump. Every time he gets in the news, he'll get a little bump here and there. But like always, they go up a little bit and then they come back down a little bit and stabilize overall. Because I think the true collectors already kind of considered him a Hall of Fame player as it is.
Power of a good nickname. Not just Charlie Hustle, but if Joe Jackson was Joey Jackson or Joseph Jackson and not Shoeless Joe, would there be the same mystique? So he's going to have a different mystique because he sat out for so long. And like Orlando said, he was a first rank, one of the first guys you would look for if he was in the set. The biggest smile in the hobby right now is probably Jeremy Lee, Sports Cards Live, who famously bought the 14 Cracker Jack Shoeless Joe at a world record price, which now is looking like a better and better deal. But yeah, both those guys should go up. Now, I don't think Eddie Sycott's going to go up.
No.
I don't think Buck Weaver's going to go up. Those are good players, but they were implicated in a different way. And Happy Felsch and all these, those guys already had a following because of the mystique of the Black Sox.
I mean, remember Joe Jackson had a 356 lifetime batting average. I mean, I don't think we're ever going to see somebody having a lifetime batting average over 350 again. And it's just he had the stats from the beginning, whether he's a Hall of Famer or not.
So yeah, I think I agree with you guys. I think Shoeless Joe's cards are probably about where they are going to be. I don't see a big bump happening there. Pete Rose cards, I think they have room to grow. I do think we will probably see some bumps on that, especially in 2027 if he gets inducted into the I was getting ready to say NASCAR, into the Baseball Hall of Fame. But that's kind of the way I see it. And I asked AI to draw a picture of Pete Rose in heaven. And here's what it came up with. I'm going to show you guys real quick. He's smiling in heaven right now. I guess he's happy that he's reinstated. So that's from AI.
No, guys, I mean, no offense, but he's happy if he's in heaven.
Yeah, this is true.
That's right.
That's the goal for all of us.
All right, so let's look at some more comments real quick before we move on to the next topic. Let's see. Mookie says Top stopped printing, issuing Rose cards for a long time. I think they restarted. Yeah, they did. That helps sow the seeds for future collectors. And I'm sure I didn't think about that aspect of it. Will we see more cards of Pete Rose now? And will we see maybe some like legendary cards of Shoeless Joe? I mean, I think anything's possible.
What if Pete set aside a bunch of sticker autographs and put them in a vault?
You never know. He
may have passed up Bob Feller for signing because he had a continuous motion thing in Las Vegas, a line all day, every day, I think. And he still had a legible signature.
Oh, he did. He had a great signature. And you talking about Bob Feller real quick. I remember back in the 1970s I was a kid working at Carousel Snack Bar, which they had the MSA discs. That's why I worked there. But
right.
Yeah, that's the whole reason I got that job. But also they had I forget, some kind of antique show or something there in the mall, and Bob Feller was there signing autographs. You're right. He signed everything. But anyway,
yeah. I remember Bob Feller, at a lot of the card shows, and he would charge $5 for an autograph, and then if there was nobody there in line, sometimes, he'd say, anybody else? And you just give him the card, give him whatever. He continued to sign for free. He didn't really care, and he was just very personal with everybody, and just, sign everything and anything. And the same thing with Pete. I mean, Pete Rose would sign baseballs, gambling, or I gambled, and whatever you wanted him to write, he did. And those are the things that they're just so readily available. And I agree with Dr. Jim. I think Pete Rose passed up Bob Feller in autographs.
I think so too. And I bet there's a hidden stash, or maybe not so hidden, of sticker autos that we may see things on. I'm sure Topps probably has quite a few of those. I would be surprised if they didn't. Here's Brody. Hey Brody, it's good to see you. He says PEDs don't help Bond's incredible eye. Yeah, I agree with that. He did have an incredible eye, so that's a good point, Brody.
That's a great point by Brody, because a lot of times, I think if the umpire saw that Bonds wouldn't swing, they'd call it a ball.
Yep. Isn't he the all-time leader in walks? Are they going to put an asterisk on that?
That's true. So let's see. Bo says it would be kismet if Pete Rose was reincarnated as the autograph hound. Oh my gosh, that's crazy. I think that's funny. John Brogy, an unsigned Bob Feller 8x10 is more rare than a signed one. That is so true. Oh my gosh. Let's see. Stukes, my eyesight improved after a prescription regimen of steroids, according to my eye doctor. Plus, my knee pain and plantar fasciitis went away. So that's good.
Well, that's also a Stukism.
A Stukes, yeah.
By the way, I want to congratulate Stukes because he has just retired. I think that this week was his final work day.
Awesome.
Wow, I did not know that. Congrats to him.
Yeah.
Mookie says Orlando is the all-time leader in walking videos.
Yeah, I do go out. When I was going out for walks, I did go ahead and do some live streaming doing my walks, just kind of sharing some opinions sometimes. But yeah, thank you, Mookie. Appreciate it.
That's funny. Steel City, would Bonds' chances grow if he owned it? Does Pete Rose have a better chance than Bonds because he did own it?
Well, guys, here's the thing. Pete Rose, according to Major League Baseball and according to the investigators, Pete didn't fully own it. He partially owned it. And he thought that was best, and he agreed to the permanent ineligibility in order to not have a finding that he bet on baseball. Okay, so my guess is Bonds would be thinking about something like that, to partially own it. Just like, and Andy Pettitte didn't partially own it as much as he said, hey, I just used these PEDs when I was trying to recover from injury, and I just want to admit it and get it out of the way. Clemens, silent. I didn't do anything, So if Bonds or Clemens or McGuire, if they partially owned it in some way that they could keep some face, that's the, but I don't know how they do that.
Mm-mm.
But Pete didn't fully own it, according to the John Dowd guy.
Let's see. Jim City, did Bob Feller's autograph change over the years? Are early versions better or more desirable? That's a good question. I don't know.
Early's usually better.
Yeah, I would agree with that for sure. Stuke says, thanks, Orlando. We're almost caught up, you guys. Mookie says, congrats, Stuke. That's amazing news. Bo says, Sosa. Yeah.
Sosa question mark.
Yeah. Sosa. Yeah. Okay. Sosa. Yeah. Abel, as a Dodgers fan, I say no to Bonds. Bo says Sosa partially apologized to the Cubs, saying he made mistakes. So maybe that's how you say it, as I made mistakes.
But like Dr. Jim says, those are all partial, saying, not completely denying it. I think the only one that completely, I think Canseco is the only one that said, yes, I did it, and for sure, and these guys did it with me and all that. I think he was probably the most open one. But when you talk about some of those guys, like let's say Rafael Palmeiro, he never admitted. He lied. He lied in Congress. And, here's a guy that, 3,000 hits, 500 home runs. Never. He'll never get in, and I'll never vote for him because he just totally lied. So that's the only reason I give Canseco some credit, because at least he admitted it and admitted it completely.
But he also named names.
Yeah, that's why
So
they
there's
banned.
other things going on there. But I think he had a 40-40 before he was doing this stuff. Maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, he was a big stud. He was fast. He was strong. Yeah. So.
Yeah. Clemens misremembered it.
Yeah, so Stu says Clemens misremembered. I've always been of the opinion that if you make a mistake, just say, I made a mistake. Just go ahead and say it. Don't try to cover it up. Don't try to, totally ignore it or anything like that. So
Okay.
I always think that's the best way to go.
Wait. Guys, are you Logan, are you married?
Yes, sir.
Orlando, you married?
Yes.
Okay, I'm married too. Happily married. Okay, let's say we're all happily married and not a card show, but for a weekend, the three of us separately, we take off. We don't tell our wives where we're going. And so we leave on Friday morning, but it's not a card show. It's definitely not a card show. You turn off your cell phone for the weekend. You come back Sunday night and your wife goes, Orlando, Logan, Jim, where have you been? And you say, I made mistakes. I mean, is that going to work? That
No
would be
way.
ridiculous. You can't. That's not an apology that I made mistakes. Your wife is going to say, okay, and what would those mistakes be? If you want to come back in the house, tell me what's going on. Bro, I made mistakes.
Yeah, but
you have to be more articulating, or it's not an apology. It's you can't seek forgiveness for unknown whatever.
No, I agree with that. But let's say that I went and I had a wreck and it was my fault. I'm going to admit that was my fault and that was my mistake.
Okay, but you can't plead the fifth with your wife. I don't want to incriminate myself. And this is a family situation with the fraternity of Major League Baseball. It's competitive. Everybody's in this together, and just making mistakes. I think you've got to fess up more than that. And to me, that'd be a deterrent. And Pete Rose, like I said, partially fessed up and substantially fessed up.
So Victor says, speaking of heaven, thoughts on the Pope Leo Topps Now card? Wasn't there like over 100,000 copies of that card that were made?
I'd want to know what Topps is doing with the obscene profits they're making from that, because I don't think they're paying royalties because he's a public figure. So I'd like to know where the donation is going, and I hope it should go to a donation place of Pope Leo's choice. That's for the betterment of humanity.
Well, I agree with that. I was going to buy one of those cards, but I totally forgot about it. So I'm sure I can find it on the secondary market fairly reasonably. I'm sure. I just have to wait my time. Let's see. Jim City says Sosa McGuire saved the game. Hard to believe they will not be put in at some point. Michael Ham, Orlando. Bo says, sounds like a movie plot. Could be. Well, we got a lot of comments still. We were almost caught up. Steel City, that's me in Strongsville, but I'm actually just buying cards. All right, so I'll tell you what, guys. Let's move on to the next topic.
Can I do one more thing? Because I misspoke when Mookie was talking about the plaque. I was assuming it was the plaque that was in the clubhouse that says no betting on baseball and all that stuff. And you've seen those plaques historically. But he was talking about the Hall of Fame plaque. That what is Rose's Hall of Fame plaque gonna read? And I was just thinking, that is tricky, because you don't want to say, you want to be fair about it, but you want to tell the story on the plaque. And so that brings the question of Clemens and Bonds and McGuire, guys like that. Would they be suggesting or recommending or drafting what their plaque would look like, because it's a very delicate thing. You walk in the Hall of Fame and you read the plaque of Bonds, and if it says he was, they can't put allegations on there. So I'm just wondering if those players would say, look, I deserve to be in the Hall of Fame, and here's what you could say. I had a long career. I had these accolades in this period of my career. I had these accolades toward the end of my career. I loved baseball, something like that. Because I don't know who writes up the plaques, but that's tricky. And Sosa would be another one, because Sosa would, I think, would not be a Hall of Famer without that home run chase that captivated America, and a lot of big home run seasons.
So, talking about the plaques, so, it makes me wonder, do the players these days get to vet what they want on the plaque, or is that solely the discretion of the Hall of Fame? I don't know.
I doubt it.
Yeah, I would think that's up to the Hall
No,
of Fame.
hey, I don't like that language. And if they said you were a scumbag or something, you say, hey, can you change scumbag to dirtbag?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's up to the Hall.
I think it's up to the Hall. It's their Hall.
Yeah.
And they're not directly affiliated with Major League Baseball. They're a separate entity.
Yeah, the NASCAR Hall of Fame is the same way. So Ziggy says, good morning. It's great to see you, Orlando. Cheers.
Thank you, Ziggy.
It's good to see Ziggy. Steel City, it would be interesting if the Vatican sued for license. No,
they can't. Anybody can sue, but it's not. Yeah.
Topps has made several Pope cars through the years. Yeah, they have. Mookie says, I'm using my new Pope car for all my hobby confessions. Forgive me, Father. I have overbid.
Oh, please.
I've paid too much. Stukes, I'm liking A-Rod's new job, Timberwolves part owner. Yeah, there you go.
Do you guys know that A-Rod's partner is Mark Lowry, who was the key guy in the pit?
I did not know that.
Yes.
I didn't know that.
A couple other guys ran the pit for a number of years, and that's where he kind of cut his teeth. Very entrepreneurial, very sharp. We had lots of dealings with him back, whatever that would have been, maybe in the 80s or early 90s. But he is super sharp. He went on to other great entrepreneurial stuff. And so he and A-Rod are now, I guess, taking over for the T-Wolves. And just in time to see if they get a long ride here.
So Pastor Craig says he's late to the party. Glad to see you. Ziggy says, Dr. Beckett, cheers. NASCAR guy, forgot your name.
Oh,
you didn't forget my name.
That hurts.
That does hurt. Come on, Ziggy. You're better than that. Friends, cheers. Pastor Craig, hi, Orlando. Good to see you. Steel City, I think that if stats are considered valid in the books, they belong on the plaque. So yeah, probably so. Hall of Fame should be. Oh, come on.
Oh man.
All right. So let's talk about something different. We've talked about this for like 49 minutes. Let's see if we can get something in real quick. PSA is opening a retail store inside of Burbank Cards in LA. I think it's kind of cool, but I mean, when you think about it, what are you going to be able to do exactly? So what do you guys think about that?
Well, I think it. Go ahead, Dr. Jim.
No, you go ahead, Orlando. I've got something to say, but go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think for them, it's a no-brainer as far as, it's just for submissions. And Burbank, especially the new store, I think it's about 30 minutes from the PSA headquarters. They'll probably put a couple of employees there with, you're talking the biggest card shop in the country, I think, is Burbank. And, they're going to draw a lot of traffic I think mostly it's going to be a lot of the guys that are going to be opening packs, and they're going to want to get that card graded right away. So I do think that it's going to help PSA. You know, it's almost kind of like a card show, having PSA at a card show. And sometimes, you know, if you go to one of these card shows where PSA is at, the line so long that, you know, it takes forever to get it done. So I think for PSA, it's a big win. I think for Rob Veras, it's a big win. And I see Burbank, the new store, is almost going to be like a card show. And, you know, what the heck? Put a couple of guys in there, pay them whatever they do, minimum wage, just to go ahead and just take orders and take the cars and then drive them over to the headquarters. I think it's great. I don't know if that's something that they could actually do in too many other locations, but I think that that's an ideal situation and a good marriage between Rob and PSA.
Totally agree. It's a win-win. I got a text from Rob. We've been friends for many decades, inviting me to the grand opening. This is the kind of news that would make me want to go. Now, I can't go because I've got a conflict, because I don't want to be missing for a weekend with my wife, if you know what I mean. As I just said, you know, she knows where I am, and she's actually been to Burbank. You know, we went to the store a few years ago and had a great time. So I'd love to go. This would make me want to go even more to see how that's integrated. What Burbank does amazingly is their buying operation and then integrating it into their stock. And, you know, most people are nervous about putting any expensive cards in the mail. They're not mailing stuff to Burbank. They're driving up there. They're standing in line to get Burbank to buy their cards. Now they've got PSA there to say, you know what, we're going to offer you this much for this card. But if you grade it, you know, if you grade it, our contingent offer is based on if it's an 8 or a 9 or a 10. And so I totally agree it's win-win, but it needs, you could say, hey, I want them in my shop. Well, you know, I think this is going to be more than just a submission thing. It's got to be more. But like Orlando said, this is the biggest dollar volume card shop, I think, in the world. And so if they can do it there, and I don't think they're going to have places all over the country, but this would be cool if it worked. You know, I'd love to see BGS be in it, but not just any card shop. This is the Burbank Sports Cards, new location, Rob's pride and joy. Ryan, you know, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. I mean, this is great news. I think it's great news for the hobby. It's going to make Burbank even more of a place where national media want to go to see what's cooking, what's hot. And so PSA positioning themselves there, another good move by PSA.
Yeah, I think it makes Burbank definitely a destination stop, especially if you're a collector. If you're anywhere out on the West Coast, you would probably want to stop there. Looking at what they're saying, PSA is it's a new way to submit, a new home for collectors. PSA's first retail store is coming to Los Angeles, and it's going to be inside Burbank Cards. Now, Chris Carlin, he told us in our chat that he's worked with Rob on the Burbank store launch. They will be opening on May 30th. The shop is nothing like I've been in before, except for maybe Dave and Adam's Superstore in Tonawanda. So it's going to be really nice. They're going to have seamless submissions, apparently, easy access to cards and ripping. You can rip packs and then submit them right there. That's all fine and good. It just, I think I agree with Dr. Beckett. They're going to have something else, I think, to really make it, be special. Maybe have some kind of day when you can bring cards in, and for whatever fee, you can take them, drop them off, and you can get them back later that afternoon or something. I don't know, but
I'm wondering what the rev share is. Is PSA going to pay rent for a kiosk inside that? Are they going to have a little alcove or their own secure area, or is Rob going to get a percentage of what business they do? I'm just wondering what the arrangement is there. But like Orlando said, I think it has the potential to be win-win, good for Rob and good for PSA. So again, they're kind of a competitor from when I was running things, but I'm hobby first. If this is good for the hobby, then that's terrific. And I think it probably will be.
Yeah, I agree. Of course, I'm pro PSA. I will always wear the hat. So anything PSA does like that, I think agree. It's good for the hobby, and it's going to be good for Rob, and going to be good for PSA for sure. So we're getting close on time, guys. Let's see what kind of comments we've got here. Let's see.
Can you bring up the one about Orlando again?
No, I think we had more than enough of comments about me.
Sight for sore eyes, though. That's good.
Thanks. Thank you so much. I do want to remind everybody that today is the Preakness. And as a horse racing fan, I think it's a big day today. And it's actually their 150th anniversary. And a small plug, my daughter, her company, Mixed Media Collective, was chosen to design the logo for the Preakness this year. And I'm so excited about that. And she's also going to be designing the one for the Pegasus race too. So as a horse racing fan, just a shout out to her, and a shout out to a big racing day today with the Preakness.
Cool.
Yeah. I'm kind of a quasi horse racing fan. Here in Germantown where I live, every year we have a Germantown charity horse show, and this year is the 76th edition of that. And in conjunction with that, they have a horseshoe. They hide horseshoes, and they give out clues to go find them. So I actually found one the other day. Thought that was really neat. In fact, they're doing it today. And when I get off of Hobby Hotline, I think I'm going to go try to find some more horseshoes. So good day for the Preakness. Good day for horses. So any closing comments? You got anything else you want to say, Orlando?
I think it's just going to be a fun day. I love the Kentucky Derby, the Preakness, and the Belmont. I just think it's one of the biggest days for the horse racing fans, and it's a big sport. And John Mangini and I had an argument that he thinks that Secretariat was the best athlete ever. So maybe the best horse, but I don't know about athlete. But that's his contention.
You know what that's based on? It's kind of based on measurements. It's based empirically on his stride length and his times and things like that, and how much better he was. It's like Babe Ruth hitting more home runs than the rest of the league. So he had physical characteristics as well as performance characteristics that put him head and shoulders above, more so than any other human athlete. But I agree. I'm not collecting horses. I'm collecting cards.
Right.
Any sport, I'll do women, I'll do men, I'll do, but I need humans.
Yeah, I'm kind of a quasi Secretariat collector. I have that card that has one of his hairs on it from the Kentucky Derby. So I know it's kind of weird, but I just kind of liked it.
I'll share one of my jockey cards, horse racing jockey cards. This is an 1888 Goodwin's Champion, and it's in an old GAI label, which I actually love. These old labels, because not only does it have a nice thing, but on the top here, something somebody should have. It has the actual card and the description of the card. So when you put it in the box in the case, you can see the top. I don't know why nobody's ever thought of that or that concept, but that is kind of neat. I've held on to that, and I won't break it out, and I'm going to leave it in that forever.
That's not why they went bankrupt.
No, I know.
They went bankrupt because they had some employee problems. But at the core, at the beginning, they were some good guys. We knew those guys, and but then they got big, and then they, just the supply and demand and the ebb and flow of business. It's tough to grow a business. It's tough to deal with employees leaving and then trying to replace them with people that are not fully trained or getting up to speed. So grading's tough. Grading stuff.
Yeah.
JAI had a good ride there for a little while. And they did stuff nobody else was doing like that, Orlando. That's a good example of their innovation.
Yeah. It's kind of a combination of the SGC, but with just a little bit nicer, better, flip there.
Yeah.
Well, all right, we just went into Hobby Hotline overtime, so I guess it's time to say goodbye to everybody out there. I'm going to leave everybody with this. Abel says we need a Secretariat cut auto.
Okay. Well.
All right, so I just want to say real quick, thanks everybody for spending your Saturday morning with us. We really appreciate that. Next week, Hobby Hotline will return with more of your favorite hobby hosts. So happy collecting, everybody. And from Dr. Jim and Orlando, we will see you folks next week.
Thanks, Logan.
Thanks.
Thanks, Logan. Appreciate it.